Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest iteration of Nick's Yemen Roundup, covering the dates 1 June to 9 June 2025. Apologies for getting this edition of the Roundup out a little late. I have been recovering from COVID. Not sure if you can hear it in my voice, but I'm still recovering a little bit. So thank you so much for your patience and apologies for any inconvenience, but I suppose we can go ahead and get started. For those of you who are new to the Roundup, my name is Nick J. Brumfield. I am an independent researcher focused on the politics, society, economics, etc., of the Middle East, with a particular focus on Yemen, although I do research and follow other countries. I have an MA in Arab Studies from Georgetown University and a decade's experience analyzing Middle East politics from a variety of perspectives, regularly quoted in international media, particularly as it relates to Yemen. I also have a wide variety of experience in some of the nuts and bolts of research and other kind of project management skills as they relate to just research generally. This includes data management, GIS capabilities, political risk, and legal consulting. And so all of this is my somewhat selfish way of saying that I am open for work. And if you have any inquiries, either related to Yemen or other countries in the Middle East, or even just general research work that you might be interested in pinging me for, please feel free to reach out to me at info.nickjbrumfield@gmail.com, and I will get back to you as soon as possible. But with that, we can get to what people are actually interested here for, which is Yemen. Let's start off, as always, with our politics and governance side of things as it relates to international affairs. We did see a fair bit of engagement on the international stage this past week as it relates to Yemen. On the UN side, we did see multiple statements released from UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, as well as the UN Security Council, calling for the Houthis to release the dozens of UN and other NGO employees that they detained way back in June of 2024. This was, in many ways, an unprecedented number of people that they detained. They have detained at least 17 UN employees and dozens of others, ostensibly on charges of espionage. But to be honest, they haven't released all that much information about them, nor allowed a lot of them access to lawyers or their families. So this has been something the United Nations has been pretty vocal about, although it hasn't necessarily resulted in their release. There have been some people released. For instance, recently an employee who had worked for the Dutch embassy who had been detained was released, but still most of them remain in custody, and this remains a major cause there. We also did see on 3 June, Yemeni government Prime Minister Salim bin Barak, who just got into Aden and is kind of settling in there, did attend the Yemen Partners Group meeting, during which he called for continued international support to Yemen's economy and government in terms of funding and whatnot. There was an expectation when bin Barak released a statement a few weeks ago stating that he would not return to Aden until he was able to secure significant international support to resolve a number of the problems in the Yemeni government territories. That, perhaps we're looking at a Saudi deposit or another sort of form of injection of a large amount of money from Saudi Arabia or Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. That is as yet to be materialized. But we are seeing that, and this continued calls for international support, and also specifically for Saudi Arabia and the Saudi-led coalition to support the Yemeni government is, I think, the Yemeni government, getting, desperate and wanting some money, which is something it does from time to time. We did see on 4 June, Presidential Leadership Council head Rashad Al-Alimi, who is in Aden this week. He returned with bin Barak, I believe, in late May or early June for Eid al-Adha. While he's there, he did receive the credentials for the new Somali ambassador to Yemen, Abdul Hakim Mohammed Ahmed. on 4 June. Around this sort of thing, we also did see Somalia release, I believe, 26 Yemeni fishermen it had detained, probably along the lines of um, fishing in Somali waters or various disputes. This is something that happens a lot in the Gulf of Aden and Red Sea littoral between the states there. But was it of interest? We did see obviously Yemen was in the headlines in the United States, where we did see it was one of the countries singled out by the Trump administration to ban the entry of all Yemenis to the United States, ostensibly on security grounds, but very kind of along the lines of Muslim ban from Trump's first administration. The Yemeni government, despite the fact that it is attempting to cultivate a strong relationship with the Trump administration in order to get support against the Houthis, expressed its regret at this decision and urged the United States to reconsider. So I don't know. We'll see what happens. And then probably the flashiest bit of news occurred on 10 June when we did see an unnamed Houthi liaison with Hezbollah that was based in Beirut, reportedly arrested in Lebanon for spying for Israel. So yet another instance, perhaps, of Israeli infiltration. This time, seemingly engaged with a Houthi official, which is it's not something you necessarily hear about. Historically, it seems Yemen hasn't been at the top of Israel's or much of the West's intelligence gathering capabilities priorities, but obviously with everything that's going on, it's ratcheting up a bit. The Houthis denied any connection with this person and said there are no Houthi officials in Lebanon. But I think it's fair to say perhaps that this did occur. Moving on over to politics and governance from the Yemeni government perspective, we did see some engagement, photo ops, etc. As Prime Minister Salim bin Barak and PLC Chairman Alimi were in Aden for Eid al-Adha. We did see on 3 June Yemeni government Prime Minister Salim bin Barak chair his first cabinet meeting since his appointment as Prime Minister in early May. It's also, I think, the first cabinet meeting chaired by a prime minister in several months after many of the ministers of the cabinet simply refused to meet under the aegis of former prime minister Ahmed Awad bin Mubarak. So obviously they're discussing all of the pressing service issues, economic issues that are really deteriorating in Yemeni government-held areas. PLC Alimi also did attend that. We did see on 6 June, PLC head Alimi and bin Barak both performed Eid prayers together in Aden. We did not see other notable members of the PLC such as Idris al-Zubaydi, Abu Zara al-Mahrami, or even some of the Saudi-backed members of the council were not there. So it is notable. You try to keep track of the public events that these people are willing to be seen together at. And Idris al-Zubaydi, despite representing the Southern Transitional Council that claims to represent the South and claims Aden as its capital, he didn't spend Eid in Aden. In all likelihood, he spent it in the UAE. We did see on 8 June PLC member Tarek Saleh celebrate Eid at Mukha. And again, other members were less visible there. Moving on over to politics and governance from the Yemeni government perspective, kind of from sort of dynamics on the ground, perhaps that could have political effects. So we did see on 7 June a seemingly developing incident, could be a major incident on 7 June when STC-aligned security belt forces detained Sheikh Anis al-Jardami, who later died. According to the security belt forces, he did undergo a medical emergency while in custody and was transferred to hospitals. The SBF is trying to cover its ass on this, more or less. It's saying it's calling for a full, transparent investigation. It's saying it arrested him on a warrant and it was doing everything above board. The SBF, of course, has been accused of often abducting or disappearing many people to a network of secret prisons that are mostly out of the control of the Yemeni government-aligned courts. They're saying it was above board and everything. They didn't torture him. They weren't the ones responsible for that. But pro-Houthi sources, say he was detained for criticism of the STC. And there's been a lot of, speculation of, whenever something like this happens, what could happen, and more importantly, what narratives could come out of it in terms of, attacking the STC and the SBF or not. So that remains a major thing. The other major thing, and this could really become an event depending on how many people turn out. On 8 June, we did see members of the Jadna tribe, which is kind of based in sort of Western Abiyan, if I remember correctly, announce a 1,000,000-man march on the occasion of I think it's the year of the abduction of Ali Abdullah Ashal. Ali Abdullah Ashal was or is I believe he was a member of the Yemeni government air defense forces. He was abducted in Aden by unknown persons. It's suspected that it was the STC-aligned forces, but it's very kind of shadowy and shady about who was responsible. Or exactly where the hell he is. There are people who say that, I've seen sources say that he is still being detained by the STC or other folks, or that he's dead. I would say, given all the trouble that the Jadna tribes have given Aden for him, that I would say he would probably have been released by now if he were still alive. But yeah, so the Jadna have organized several 1,000,000-man marches from their areas under the control, not just including them, but also including tribesmen or tribes in Lahej, I believe even Dale and Shabwa at some point, who sort of use him as a symbol for the unauthorized disappearance of their members by various armed groups over the course of. So it's kind of become bigger than just about Ali Ashal. So they are organizing another one of those tribes. We those marches. We haven't seen one of these in a little bit. So it's unclear how big it will get. But yeah, definitely something to keep an eye on with regards to security in Aden. I believe there were some limited clashes the last time they did something big like that. Let's see here. There we go. Moving on over to politics and governance from the Houthi movement perspective. So just a continuation of the general, repression of journalists and everything that we've talked about for the last several weeks now. We did see the Committee to Protect Journalists report in early June that between 21 and 23 May, the Houthis detained 4 separate journalists. This include Abdul Jabbar Zayed, Hassan Ziyad, Abdulaziz Al-Noum, Walid Ali Ghalib, and also sentenced one to prison, who we've talked about before, Muhammad Al-Mayahi. They sentenced him to 1.5 years in prison ostensibly for criticizing Abdul Malik al-Houthi. We also did see on 2 June, the Houthi-aligned Supreme Judicial Council expanded its judicial inspection authority branches to Ib and Hudaydah governorates that also cover sort of neighboring governorates. I often don't report on this just because it's pretty dry, and most of the time people aren't terribly interested in it. But the Houthis have been pretty radically restructuring Yemen's judiciary in areas under their control for the last year or two now. Just in the last couple of weeks, we've seen the Supreme Judicial Council move around dozens, if not more, judges and assign them to new locations, that kind of thing. So them increasing their inspection authority should perhaps be seen as part of that project. We did see on 6 June anti-Houthi media, but still credible anti-Houthi media, report that the Houthi-aligned authorities had banned Eid prayers in several Sana'a mosques in order to boost turnout at events that the Houthis were hosting, ostensibly in support of Palestine and other, or just general Eid festivities. The Houthis this week over last week, were very much into publicizing that, after Eid prayers, everyone came out and went to a protest for Palestine or one of these things. So they had a lot of media coverage around this. So it is believable that they would, try to maybe juice the numbers on that by restricting Eid attendance at mosques and trying to consolidate them into larger events. We also did see murmurs about prisoner exchanges. I don't necessarily think they're going to go anywhere. We do hear these from time to time, particularly around major holidays like Eid al-Adha. Abdul Qadr al-Murtada, that was the chief of the Houthi prisoner negotiation committee, also a sanctioned individual for ostensibly torturing prisoners, did announce that he did announce a prisoner exchange offer to the Yemeni government, but accused the Yemeni government of not responding. And so, yeah, it doesn't necessarily seem that that's going to go anywhere. Moving on over to military and security behind the front lines, there's actually a fair bit that occurred behind the front lines for a holiday. It was kind of a pretty active holiday. Probably the one that got the most attention concerned pretty notable clashes between between various groups. It's depending on the narrative that you choose to follow. It's unclear exactly what occurred, but there are a couple different stories. So these clashes took place to the east of Marib city. So if you see here, this is a kind of a satellite kind of image photo showing sort of what that looks like. This is a more desert area. It's a less controlled area by the Yemeni government, even though it is ostensibly controlled by the Yemeni government. It's kind of like a bad land where, bandits and stuff are able to kind of have a bit more freedom. It's also home to the Abida tribe, which has been, historically a bit restive vis-a-vis central government authorities over the course of the last several years. So it's an area where we see a lot of kind of activity and potential clashes, et cetera. But this past week, we did see a number of incidents. On 2 June, we did see the Yemeni government Army Colonel Mohammed al-Shaddabi assassinated at the Arcane Junction, kind of along the Marib International Road. This road goes all the way up to Hadramaut, and then to the Wadiya border crossing. So it's a very important road. It's also the only completely Yemeni government controlled road still going into Marib. All of these other roads are currently held by the Houthis. So if you in terms of areas of control, essentially all these areas are Houthi controlled all around, with the exception of this one major road. But we did see on 4 June attacks occur on Yemeni government aligned forces that closed this road. So a couple different stories came out. One, the local Yemeni government aligned security committee, which is ostensibly dominated by the Islah party, which is locally dominant, accused essentially a Houthi sabotage cell of conducting attacks. Other groups, including STC-aligned media and Houthi-aligned media, presented a different picture, essentially presenting it as a clash either between Islah-aligned forces and kind of other local Yemeni government-aligned sort of armed groups that, or just had a dispute for some reason or another. On 6 June, we did see another attack kind of on a power line between the Marib Power Station, which is one of the other side of the destination here, and Marib, cut off power ostensibly to Marib City for 24 hours ahead of the Eid al-Adha holiday. So that was a big thing. So a lot going on here. It's not necessarily unprecedented in terms of what's occurring, but it is notable. And particularly for the Yemeni government, which, it's also worth noting that this area is also very important in terms of oil and gas output for the Yemeni government and Yemen generally. So it's a very fascinating area, and one that often sees clashes between various local groups and local and central authorities. Let me see here. Moving on over to behind the front lines for the Yemeni government, more in southern Yemen, in Abiyan Governorate, which is not on this map, we did see on 4 June pro-Houthi media reports a suspected U.S. drone strike in Wadiya district, ostensibly targeting AQAP elements that are known to be based there. We have seen suspected U.S. strikes and other anti-AQAP activity really spike in the last couple of months following Trump's accession to the presidency, really seeming to try to dial up or at least loosen the rules of engagement. So U.S. counterterrorism forces that have been based in Yemen for well over a decade now, and may have known where people are at and everything, now seem to be able to shoot a bit more. We did see, and this got international headlines on 8 June, the head of AQAP, Saad al-Awlaki, did issue a statement in which he did, among other things, threaten Trump and Elon Musk over the Israeli attack on Gaza. This got a lot of play internationally. I'm not necessarily, expecting it to do all that much or mean all that much for Yemen locally. Although I do think it's important to contextualize this statement, not just in the context of AQAP's generalized, hatred of the United States and wanting a confrontation with the United States and Israel, particularly as it relates to Gaza, but also this spike of counterterrorism activity that we've seen in Yemen against AQAP specifically over the course of the last couple of months. I do think that's an important piece of the puzzle, and thing to know that I did see get alighted in a lot of international news coverage. In terms of Hadramaut Governorate, further to the east, we did see some potential, kinetic activity between the Hadramaut Tribal Alliance, which has been trying to perhaps show its weight a little bit more. So this is the Amr bin Habrish led group of Hadramaut tribes, or claiming to represent Hadramaut tribes, that has recently formed its own militia, the Hadramaut Protection Forces, and it's been trying to move around, and it's been principally dominant in this area of central Hadramaut, known as the Plateau. The STC is more dominant on the coast, although we have seen the HTA be able to hold protests and stuff on the coast as well. But we did see on 8 June, pro-Houthi media reports intra-HTA clashes at Hudaydah camp in Ghail bin Yamin district. And we did see on 8 June, and this was pretty widely reported, the Siban tribes of the Hadramaut Plateau ostensibly rejected the establishment of an HTA camp after HTA forces stormed a kind of a tribal territorial site. And so this was played up obviously by the STC, which does not like the HTA, which has historically been more Saudi-backed, whereas the STC has been historically more UAE-backed. They disagree on what Hadramaut's future in Yemen should be, or South Yemen should be. And so this was played up, but it does seem to be occurring. And so following the tribal politics of Hadramaut's always a bit difficult, but we try our best. Last but not least, in Mahra Governorate, further to the east, we did see reports on 4 June that the Saudi-backed Nation Shield Forces, which are ostensibly under the control of PLC Chairman Rashad al-Alimi, but in effect appear to basically just be under Saudi control. Their camp at Kishan in Mahra Governorate graduated its first batch of Mahra recruits. They were not flying the Yemeni flag when they did that. I don't even think they were flying the South Yemeni flag when they did that. But most of the recruits appear to be either from Mahra or to have been educated as Salafis in Mahra. So this is big. The Houthis have been reporting a lot on the Nation Shield Forces in Mahra and the establishment of Nation Shield Forces in Mahra. I haven't necessarily talked about it all that much because it seemed a bit not far-fetched. I obviously think it was potentially occurring, but in terms of they tend to play that out. This is the first instance that I've seen of substantive Nation Shield Forces activity in Mahra. Local kind of Saudi trying to plant a flag locally in this strategic governorate between Oman, Yemen, and then Saudi has always been very, very protective of Mahra for a variety of reasons. That this is occurring, and that they are establishing seemingly substantive infrastructure with something to the tune of at least 1,000 men currently in Mahra. So that's something to keep an eye on and something to see. That the Saudis have been deploying Nation Shield Forces, which again are predominantly led by Salafi tribesmen from the south. They seem to consider them more reliable than other armed groups, so they seem to be trying to consolidate their muscle in Yemen under the control of the Nation Shield Forces, mostly apolitical Salafi mercenaries, more or less. They've deployed them to Wadi Hadramaut. They've deployed them to Mahra. They've deployed them to several locations in southwest Yemen that STC aligned forces have given up for them. So it's the Saudis are definitely kind of putting their back behind them, seemingly as a response to or how it is often framed as a response to the UAE-backed Southern Giants Brigades, which are a very similar kind of organization in terms of their makeup and training and that kind of thing. Let's see here. Yes, and then moving over to military and security behind the scenes in Houthi-held areas, we did see a number of incidents occurring in Amran in Sada Governorate, which is way up in the north. We did see multiple instances of clashes. On 5 June, a Houthi supervisor was killed in Amran. That sparked some clashes in Reda. In Sada Governorate, we did see anti-Houthi media report on 5 June that Houthi forces were besieging the house of Member of Parliament Sheikh Omar Dagsan in Sada Governorate, just off the capital of Sada, amid a land dispute. And in Beira Governorate, and this is just really tragic, on 7 June, during the Eid al-Adha holiday, we did see a gunman who, people hate, he seemingly was mentally in a bad place, did enter a mosque and shoot at least 7 people, killing 2 of them and wounding 5 in Rada, which is a bit further to the southeast of Sana'a. Rada is a very interesting and in many ways tragic location in the Yemen, where it's seen a lot of violence. Particularly, it's even though it's pretty firmly under Houthi control. It's more of a borderland for the Houthis. There's been a lot of low-level insurgent activity against the Houthis from the local tribes and just general opposition. And the Houthis have been pretty brutal in their sort of use of violence against civilians in that area. Not that they are generally, but like that area has in particular become sort of known as a place the Houthis really let loose on. So yeah, so just another incident there that it's not great, and on the holiday too. It's not great. Moving on over to military and security from a front lines perspective, really not a whole lot to report in terms of clashes between the Houthis and anti-Houthi forces. Really, the main story this week concerned the ongoing reopening of the Aden Dale Sana'a road. So we did see on 2 June the Houthi deputy prime minister, or first deputy prime minister, Mohammed Muftah, toward these kind of reopening of the Aden Dale Sana'a road, which kind of takes place in this area here. I'm going to try. I haven't had time to develop my own QGIS areas of control map, but that's next on my list so that I can more easily and intricately show you what's going on rather than using these open source maps. So we did see Houthi Deputy Prime Minister Mohammed Muftah sort of inspect that reopening, and during that inspection offered to open the Aden Taz highway, which is a big deal if they're able to do that. So the Houthis have reopened this Aden Sana'a highway, and then they've also opened, they're offering to open this Aden Taz road, which would be a big deal. Some have framed this as a potential breakthrough in the Yemen peace process, and perhaps it might be. We haven't seen any public murmurings yet coming from Saudi or Muscat in terms of progress on a roadmap. But in terms of alleviating humanitarian sort of stuff, opening the roads is a big one for a lot of Yemenis, and being able to travel without having to go through a bunch of different checkpoints, et cetera, is a big one. And it seems that the Houthis are doing this because of the recent attacks by Israel and the United States that have really damaged Hudaydah port. And so they need more economic activity. And so they're opening the roads to Yemeni government-held areas to the south. Aden is a major port that remains undamaged, and so perhaps we'll see some spike in imports through Aden. We have already seen some increase in imports there. But yeah, this in many ways is about money for them. So we did see on 5 June the Houthis Custom Authority assign a customs committee and a temporary kind of customs booth along this road so that they can start taxing any goods that go through it. So yeah, it's always about the money. But still, this road reduces the length between Aden and Sana'a by something like 240 kilometers. So it's a big win for humanitarian stuff, even if the Houthis may have ulterior motives for that. We also did see on 8 June attacks, clashes along this front, kind of near where this road is reopening, that is threatening the reopening, but it still kind of seems to be open. Moving on over to the Houthi-Israel conflict, just a continuation, really, of kind of what we've seen for the last several weeks. When all of this started back in late 2023 and the Houthis started doing this, I think a lot of Yemen experts were saying, yeah, like we're going to get to a place where the Houthis are just going to be claiming to launch and may actually be launching a bunch of ballistic and drone attacks against Israel, just continuously for forever, more or less, which is more or less what they were doing with Saudi Arabia prior to the announcement of a truce in April 2022. So this is very much their kind of happy place, I think, in terms of being able to get on TV and saying that they're attacking the great enemy constantly. So we did see multiple claimed ballistic missile attacks and drone attacks on, in particular, Ben Gurion Airport seems to be their main target. They seem to want to limit flights. To the extent that they're able, they haven't shut down the airport by any means, but there have been multiple instances over the last several weeks where flights have been suspended for a period due to these attacks. We've also seen Houthi Supreme Political Council President Mahdi al-Mashat in recent last week and a half, threaten companies in not so many words with foreign companies investing in Israel and say, hey, get out now. If you get out now, we won't attack you, that kind of thing. And obviously, the big story, at least during this coverage period, on 9 June, we did see 9 to 10 June, Israel warned civilians to evacuate the areas around the Houthi-held ports, Ras Isa, Salif, and Hudaydah, and then attacked the Hudaydah docks with missile ships rather than airstrikes. So the Israelis have deployed missile ships into the Red Sea for the last year and a half, 2 years almost. And this is the first instance of where we've seen the Israeli Navy conducting these attacks. It's not the first instance that we've seen missiles used in kind of strikes in Yemen. The United States used a lot of missiles during its operations over the course of the last couple of years. So another strike on the Houthi-held port on Hudaydah. They're trying to hit the infrastructure through which the Houthis or just general merchants in Yemen can import goods into areas under their control. So they say that they're using this to import weapons, and who am I to dispute them? I think that's very plausible that the Houthis are using these to import weapons, but it's just very clearly they are trying to put pressure on the Houthis by destroying their ability to conduct economic transactions and get money from the economic activity in areas under their control, which it's not great for the Yemenis, ordinary Yemenis who need to import things like food and fuel and all that sort of stuff. So we'll see how that plays out. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in the humanitarian section. Moving on over to humanitarian and economic issues. In terms of humanitarian issues, possibly very big one. On 9 May, we did see reports from anti-Houthi media, but again, credible anti-Houthi media reports, that the Houthis have seized $4 million worth of assets from the international NGO Save the Children, after Save the Children announced its suspension of operations in Yemen recently, just part of a general pullback. So the Houthis have reportedly gone in and seized offices, generators, just a bunch of stuff that Save the Children ostensibly owns. In response to this is, I think, pretty typical for the Houthis. When the UN suspended food aid in Sada Governorate in the last several months, the Houthis just went and seized a WFP warehouse and started distributing aid and et cetera. In terms of food security, we also did see on 1 August, Houthis, or this past week, the Houthis announced that as of 1 August, they're going to ban the import and raise tariffs on several food and non-food products, things ranging from ready-made cans of dairy products to tomato sauce to iron. They say this is part of an integrated plan to essentially raise domestic manufacturing capabilities. I can't speak to the degree that that's the case, or this is them trying to benefit connected merchants who've established factories, which I guess that could be one and the same as well, or even perhaps attempting to restructure the products that they need to import given their more limited import capacity. So yeah, so something to keep an eye on. In terms of humanitarian economic issues from an infrastructure perspective, in terms of port infrastructure, a couple developments with relation to the Houthi-held Red Sea ports. As of on 3 June, the U.S. warned ships that approval by the UN verification and inspection mechanism, which is an international mechanism designed to screen ships going to Houthi-held ports for weapons, so that they couldn't smuggle weapons in. The U.S. said that UNVEM approval will not protect Red Sea ships carrying fuel to Houthi-held Red Sea ports from sanctions. This does imply that ships are very much still bringing fuel to the Houthi-held Red Sea ports, despite the start of U.S. sanctions on those fuel imports in April, and several U.S. statements to the effect that it is going to sanction fuel ships. So to the extent that that's deterring anybody, I think remains to be seen. We did see on 4 June, Human Rights Watch called for an investigation of the U.S. 17 April airstrike on Ras Isa as an apparent war crime. Following that strike, we have seen port operations significantly degraded, although they do appear to be continuing. In terms of air infrastructure, on 4 June as well, Human Rights Watch called for the investigation of the Israel's 6 and 28 May strikes on Sana'a International Airport as war crimes. That last strike on 28 May wiped out the last Houthi-held Yemeni Airlines airplane. That was seemingly, as the smoke clears, was seemingly the one that they were using to service the Sana'a to Amman commercial route. This was the only international flight out of Houthi-held areas. Yemeni, which has, is mostly controlled by the Yemeni government, does have other planes, but it appears that the Yemeni government is not willing to share them with the Houthis, in part because whenever the Yemeni government tries to, allow more planes into Sana'a, for instance, the Houthis seize them. So it's hard to blame the Yemeni government for maybe saying like, okay, we're not going to necessarily move planes to Sana'a because the Houthis are going to just seize them and use them as hostages or whatever. But as of 5 June, Yemeni government officials had said that the Israeli strike had effectively eliminated Sana'a air travel, and they had prepped plans to return pilgrims from the Hajj, which was occurring in Saudi Arabia in this past week, in other ways, either through the Wadiya land border crossing with Saudi Arabia, or by sending them to other airports and then having them go over land. In terms of energy infrastructure, we did see on 2 June the Yemeni government begin transporting fuel from Shabwa's S2 block to the Aden Petromasila station for electricity generation. This came amid a controversy. The directives from Yemeni government Prime Minister Salim bin Barak ordered for the fuel to be brought from Block S2 to Block 4, I believe, in Shabwa, which has a pumping station that was then supposed to be used to pump the fuel through a pipeline to the Shabwa coast, where it would then be loaded onto trucks and carried to Aden that way. It appears that the authorities, for some reason, and there's speculation as to why they're doing this, have just decided to ship it directly from S2 on trucks to Aden, even though it's more expensive and would ostensibly take longer. So just an interesting, sort of factoid there. And we did see on 5 to 8 June a domestic gas crisis reported in Aden ahead of the Eid al-Adha holiday. There were accusations that the Yemeni government reduced the natural petroleum gas allotment to Aden, but the Yemeni government came out and said, no, we actually upped the allotment. It's distribution issues. In either case, it was causing a lot of issues for people who rely on it for a variety of domestic needs. So that here's a map of the let's see here. Yeah, map of the oil. So the Shabwa S2's somewhere up in here. And so it was supposed to take the pipeline down to Bir Ali and then be loaded on the tankers to be brought to Aden. But it seems they're just going straight to Aden, which, who knows why they're doing that. It could be for any number of reasons. But interesting to note. In terms of banking and currency, I actually had a slide for this last week and accidentally left it off. But really, the main story for the last 2 weeks now has concerned the battle over the Yemen Banks Association. So, as a result of the U.S. Foreign Terrorist Organization designation of the Houthis, there's a lot of concern among Sana'a-based banks or portions of Sana'a-based banks that they wouldn't necessarily be able to conduct transactions, or they would be sanctioned, or have their SWIFT IDs revoked. And so we've seen a general move from Sana'a-based banks to try to move their headquarters to Yemeni government-held Aden to avoid these sanctions. The Houthis have largely not let them do this. They're forcibly keeping bank employees in Sana'a. But as part of this move, there was a claim in the last week that the Yemen Banks Association had relocated its headquarters to Aden and had elected a new board. To the extent that you view that as legitimate, I guess it depends on who you're talking to. On 3 June, we did see reports from a bank, the Yemen Banks Association, as it was previously constituted, its previous board, claimed that this was an illegal move, and that kind of rejected its relocation, said Sana'a is by law the headquarters of the Banks Association, and the board election was void. So perhaps we are seeing a further fragmentation of the Yemeni financial sector beyond what it already was, which was something that people were worried about and warning about with regards to the FTO designation. So not great. That's all I have for me in terms of related readings. A couple good pieces out this week. On 3 June, South 24 put out a great piece on the legacy of oil companies in Hadramaut, which I recommend you check out. Cancer Scars on the Map of Privileges, which was a good read. Gets into the kind of, I always enjoy those pieces that get into the kind of deep local sociology, economics, politics of production, particularly coming from West Virginia. So I recommend that. And then on 10 June, Foreign Affairs put out a piece, I believe by Vali Nasser, The New Balance of Power in the Middle East, America, Iran, and the Emerging Arabian Axis, which was just, I think, a good piece sort of looking at, in particular, Saudi kind of thinking about Iran and the Houthis amid everything that's been going on in the last 2 years. I've seen it get a lot of shares. A lot of people seem to like it. But yeah, just in terms of crystallizing a view of sort of what's happening, I think it was a pretty good one. So so that's all I have for me. Thank you so much again for listening. Again, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you have any questions, comments, concerns, please feel free to drop them in the comments below. Additionally, if you do have any work requests, please feel free to reach out to me at info.nickjbrumfield@gmail.com. Thank you so much.